Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Bintegers podcast. My name is Biniam, I'm your host. This is episode 2. Today we are talking about the DNA of my definition of integrity. I'm so excited to get into this. Let's go ahead and begin. But before we begin, one of the things we feature on this program in a very prominent way at the outset of the program is we like to do what I call a feelings check. And I learned how to do this in my 12-step program that I attend. We usually start off with a feelings check-in, and it's been such an invaluable tool that I've learned about myself, especially by way of spot check-ins, momentary spot check-ins on my emotional state. And I want to share this with you, my listeners, to encourage you as well to join me in doing the feelings check-in. What do we do in a feelings check-in? Basically, what we do is we just do an internal assessment emotionally of where we are in that moment. And we do this because I don't think many of us have learned how to be true to acknowledging what's going on internally, emotionally for us. And as a result, we are susceptible to the ups and downs of our emotional fluctuations without really being aware of what's happening. And we're kind of like a leaf tossed in the wind, tossed about in the wind. So that's why we do a feelings check-in, is to learn more about ourselves, to become more aware of where we're at, and also to legitimize and affirm the full range of emotions that we go through. Oftentimes we think that only the good emotions are the ones that we need to reflect on and acknowledge, and the bad ones we try to suppress and say, oh, it wouldn't feel right if I told someone I was angry or sad or upset, because they're not culturally really encouraged to do so. But I want to legitimize and practice legitimizing that full range of emotions, from the uncomfortable and the ones that just don't feel good to the good ones as well, and say these are all valid tools that help us express who we are in honest and authentic ways, and hence why we give time. I'm using what I call the feelings wheel. You can go ahead and print your own from the internet or check it up online. And this just is a wheel that categorizes a whole bunch of these emotions and helps it to become a little more accessible. So in this moment, I'd love for you guys to do the same as I'm doing this as well. In this moment, I am feeling a sense of genius. I'm so expectant and excited about our program today and what I'm going to be talking about. Like, I'm super excited. This is going to be like such a fun time. So I'm feeling creative as well. I'm feeling challenged, and I am also feeling passionate about this. There's high expectations I'm coming to you guys with emotionally, and I'm so thrilled and grateful to have this time with you guys. You know what else I'm grateful for? I'm grateful, dear friends, that I have this purpose in sharing with you that the insights that I've come across, the time I invest and share from my experience. It's just such an exciting, exhilarating feeling. But before we run out of time, because we only give ourselves 15 minutes on this program here so that we can also respect your time, we want to get into the DNA of my definition of integrity. And I'm saying it's my definition because I think we each have different perspectives or experiences in how we think about integrity. And I'd love to hear yours. But as you're listening to this podcast, think through with me in the components that I've included in my definition. I call it the DNA, so it's a breakdown of why I included in my personal definition integrity. So I just want to say at the outset, I'm not an expert at this. I'm not a guru of integrity. There is a vacuum right now online, in my perspective, on this theme of integrity, especially in relation to a podcast like this that is devoted specifically to talking about and exploring integrity. But I hope in time that there will be many more that are taking up the torch and exploring it and bringing a lot more awareness and accessibility to integrity and how it benefits us in our lives. But as we consider my definition, like I say, I would love for you to be thinking through yours, and I'd love to hear at the end. I'll remind you at the end what I missed, what I could strengthen, what I could do to strengthen my definition. But here's my definition of integrity. It's very simple. There are 4 parts, 2 progressions. Basically, I define integrity as when one's internal values match their external actions while being true to themselves and respectful of those around them. Let me say that again. My definition of integrity is when one's internal values match their external actions while they're being true to themselves and respectful of those around them. So that's the simplicity of my definition that I put together. I said there's 4 parts to it and 2 progressions. Let's go ahead and break it down. The first part is internal values, and I think we all have these. Another synonym for values is let's see here, beliefs, or perhaps even principles that one has imbibed. They feel these are really important. So one's internal values, or their internal principles, or their internal beliefs, whichever one of those words works for you, that they find are really important, or that they've been taught these are really important. They even may be desirable traits as well. So we're thinking about values such as honesty or integrity, the very topic of our podcast, or kindness or respect or loyalty, compassion, perseverance, humility, etc. These are values that we've been taught along the way socially are really good. And so we've been taught to try and embody these values and to believe in them. And so that's what I mean when I say internal values, because these are things that are on the inside, the things that we feel are good socially, that are on the inside, that we are buying into and saying, this is what we should all be like, for example. And it could be different to your list. It could be different from person to person, right? These values, principles, beliefs usually come from our upbringing, for one. You know, when we're formative in a young season of life, these are things that are like locked in and trained and indoctrinated into us. So they can come from our upbringing. They can come from our cultural backgrounds as well, right? So like in our Western cultural context, for example, it's really a valuable or a value that's praised to look and maintain eye contact with the one that you are interacting with. Whereas in different cultures, this is actually discouraged strongly because it's considered in a different way that is more like challenging in an inappropriate way. So cultural backgrounds, our upbringing, our personal experiences, or maybe we have heroes in life and we're like, ooh, I like that model there, right? And so I don't know, young men, for example, may have as their role models those who present a certain characteristic that they say, I want to be like that, right? Well, from the movies that they watch, or the people, mentors, coaches in their lives. And so they may take on their personal values from watching those individuals that are tremendously influential. And it could also be aspirations where you're like, I want to be like that person, or I want to imbibe this person's value. Like Mother Teresa is a really powerful one. She inspired many around the world, didn't she, by the way that she lived her life. And so others aspired to be like her in her characteristics and values that she exhibited. But the point of this is, I believe that we all have internal values inside of us. So that's part number one. Part number two of my definition is the external actions that should match the internal values. And here's where we get into the interesting zone. You see, I think there's a big break from my observation as I watch people in general, culturally and societally. It seems like there's a big break between one's values or internal values that they subscribe to and the actions that are lacking that show that they really are following through. And it's not that they don't believe in their values, part one. I think that it's just really hard. It's really hard to follow through and match our external actions to our values. You see, all those characteristics, those values, those principles, those beliefs, those good things that we say, this is worthwhile, this is like what the ideal should look like. These are not easy, because if they were easy, it would be a cinch for most of us to be doing this. But they are not easy to do. They don't come naturally. We have to practice at them. Consider the baby when it's born. Like, you don't see babies who are born exhibiting these characteristics that we've come to value. Like, they have to be taught how to be kind, how to be respectful, how to be patient, how to be hardworking. Like, all of these things are really difficult to imbibe and practice practically, right? So we can say, yeah, that's a good thing to be hardworking. However, it can be extremely challenging to follow through on it. And so unless you actually apply yourself to it, it's going to be really challenging. And so I think that values should guide part one should be the guide of our actions, but it doesn't happen because it's a lot easier to take the easy way. It's a lot easier to be impatient than patient. It's a lot easier to be a couch potato than be a hard worker, right? It's a lot easier to be impatient and it's a lot easier to be arrogant than humble, for example, right? You see the contrast with these values, right? It's a lot easier to do the things that aren't really considered as valuable character traits or beliefs. And as a result, for many, they take the easy way. And as a result, they may subscribe to these values, but they may not care about following through on them. And then therein is the big break. Therein is the discord, if you will. And it's a really sad one to observe because in my experience and in my observation, we miss out on some beautiful things in life when we skip the hard work invested in practicing practically these values in our lives. And as a result, like we really just shortchange ourselves. But that's why I'm here on this podcast. I'm here because I've spent some time, some years now, practicing the hard things, and I've come to a place where I like what I'm seeing. I like the way that I'm thinking. I like the way that I'm feeling. I like the way that I'm seeing my evolution as a person, because we're all changing. I really appreciate what I'm seeing in me and how I'm evolving. And I've come to experience some beautiful gifts. We were talking about gifts yesterday, the gift of integrity, for example. I've come to experience some beautiful things because I've committed to this way of life. And I want to now extend my experience and sharing it with you, and also encourage and challenge you as well to take the hard road, to start doing the hard things. I want to encourage you. I want to walk alongside you as we together can grow in walking with integrity. Let me go to the third part. This is the second progression. The first progression is internal values matching external actions. That's the first part and second part in their progression. The third and the fourth are also progression. And that is while being true to ourselves and respectful of others around us. First, we need to be true to ourselves. I got this flipped around in my experience for a lifetime, where I was respectful of others at the expense of being true to myself. And because I was not true to myself, because I was being dishonest with myself, I wasn't actually presenting my true self to those that I was respecting. And that was something that really denigrated my self-worth as a person. So it's really important to start off by being true to you. This is why we practice the feelings check-in at the outset. It's a way of us practicing how can we be true to ourselves in this moment? How am I feeling? How can I give legitimacy to how I'm feeling, for example, right? And so being true to ourselves, we want to address the mismatch in part 1 and 2. The mismatch that happens there is when we have our values but we don't follow through on the actions. When our actions don't reflect our values, we're not being true to ourselves. So we need to be true to ourselves. And a really important starting place, we need to think not about the finish line, we need to think about the starting line. And here's where I want you to listen carefully, my dear listener, and that is the starting place is really critical. This is where I had to start myself. My starting place, let me see if I can describe it real quickly, was I'm not where I'd like to be. I'm dishonest with myself. I'm dishonest with so many around me. But my starting place is I'm going to start on a place of truth, saying, here's where I'm at. I want to acknowledge what's going on right now. I'm far from where I want to be, and I'm going to account for all those ways that I've shortchanged myself. But my starting place is I have a desire. I have a desire for integrity. And I'm going to start in this moment going forward, practicing being truthful, saying, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm here at the starting place. And that's a fantastic place to start. This is integrity. When you start off at this premise of being true to yourself, this is a magnificent starting point, my dear listener. It's so critical that we all start at this place and give ourselves permission for that and saying, hey, I'm not going to try to finish the race in one sprint. I'm going to work at this over time. It's going to take time. But forget what others are thinking about you. Forget about what you might lose in the process. Start off at this premise of being true to yourself and saying, here's my starting point. I have a desire, and that's a really beautiful seed to plant as you embark from there. And then as you're going on to the fourth part, that is respectful of others. You see, you have enough work figuring yourself out for a lifetime. I've got enough work working on me to worry about what others are thinking. And so I'm going to put that to the wayside and say, how can I be true to myself, respectful of others as they're trying to figure out their own way? That's a courtesy that we're going to give to each other. I hope this has been really insightful. I would love to hear your thoughts, and drop me a comment, throw me an email. I would love to connect with you on your DNA of integrity and what that looks like. Thank you so much for joining me. I will touch base with you soon. Bye for now.